Call now with your question. 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live for the final segment of today's show. We're heading back to the phones now. We've got one more segment here with Father Dominic Legge, and we're talking about Catholic morality and why it leads to our happiness. Teresa is up next. She is in Portland, and she is listening to our friends, listening to Mater Dei Radio, our friends there. Hey, Teresa, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Father.
Good evening.
My question, I'm not really sure how to say it, but I'm studying about the Catholic faith. I've been Catholic all my life and everything, and I'm trying to learn more about it and get more into depth in that. And along the way, I've had several people point out to me the teachings of, like, the Dalai Lama, and that their teachings and others like them seem very kind and very spiritual. And I'm wondering if it's at odds, not because of that, but if somewhere in there it's at odds with the Catholic teachings and that.
Well, that's a great question, and it's one that I think probably a lot of people have. So in the growing, increasingly multicultural society that we live in, often we do encounter people who adhere to another faith entirely, another religion, and we may have questions about what they believe and find some of their beliefs interesting and maybe even intriguing. We want to learn more about them. So I could say, I guess maybe first, it's important for each of us to be well-formed in our own Catholic faith, to know what we were baptized into and what we believe. And before going off to do a lot of investigation of other faiths, it's probably good to know at least the fundamentals and to be well-grounded in our own beliefs, because that's going to be a much healthier base from which to start exploring other things. Now, is it wrong to learn about other religions? Well, no, that can be a helpful thing. It's one thing, though, to learn about them as a way to, just to discover something else about the world. That can be interesting, or to find ways to dialogue with people of those faiths. It's another thing to start to become an adherent of one of those religious systems. And that is where I think from a Catholic perspective, I would want to start raising some warning flags. Because if you begin investigating it as a possible spiritual option for yourself, really what you're saying is, I am thinking that maybe the Catholic faith isn't enough or isn't really true, or that this spiritual practice is going to supplement the Catholic faith in a way that, that it's lacking in something. And that, of course, would be spiritually very dangerous. But maybe I could say a word about how to think about other religions in general. Sometimes you hear people say, well, all religions are basically the same. They're different paths. They have different practices, of course, but they're different paths to the same goal. And actually, there's a good reason to question whether a statement like that is true. So if you think about, just comparing, say, Christianity or Catholicism with Buddhism, to take the example of the Dalai Lama, so that's one branch. There are many different branches of Buddhism. But if you try and analyze, what is the goal of Catholicism or of Christianity? It's to have union with the triune God, who is tripersonal, right? Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And we are drawn into communion, a personal relationship with Jesus, and therefore with the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit as one God. And that our goal in heaven is to be eternally united to God as human persons. That's like the fulfillment of our personality, is to be joined to them. What is the goal of Buddhism? Is the goal of Buddhism a kind of personal union with a personal God? Actually, no, it is not. The goal of Buddhism generally is to acknowledge that being a human person, being an individual person, is a kind of illusion, and that I should try to transcend my individuality and be sort of absorbed into something higher, some you might say, a higher consciousness or something like that. But it certainly isn't an understanding that I am, as a person, going to be united to God. I think if you talk with a serious Buddhist who has taken seriously the Buddhist doctrines, they would say, yeah, actually, we do not think that is possible or even a good idea. So a Christian faith, a Christian path to that goal is not going to help you get to the Buddhist goal. And following the Buddhist path, it will lead you toward the goal that they're proposing, but it won't lead you towards the goal that Christianity is proposing. So then you ask the question, I think, well, which is the best goal to pursue? And there, from the perspective of the Catholic faith, I think we would say, well, Jesus Christ has come to reveal to us who God really is and the path to follow to get to union with God. And he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and that all who come to the Father come through me. So that Christ then is the way, the highest and privileged way, the perfect way. In the end, we would say as Catholics, the only way, as long as we understand how God's grace might work through Christ in the lives of people who maybe are outside the visible communion of the church, but nonetheless, that all graces, everyone who is saved is in some way saved through Christ. Have I addressed your question?
Yes, that is beautiful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate what you said, and I am continuing to study my Catholic faith. I just wanted to know, how the spirituality that they speak of in some of these other ones. I mean, it seems kind and gentle and full of peace, and it just seems like it kind of went along the same lines as what our Catholic Church does, our Catholic doctrines and that. And I thought somehow they kind of meshed a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you're certainly right that there are some elements that you can find in various faiths, in various religious traditions, that resemble other religious traditions, and where you might even find some harmonies and things, like to say, marriage is a very important foundation of the family, and you should respect marriage vows. There's lots of different religious traditions that would say that, but they don't necessarily have the same understanding of what our ultimate goal in life is, and therefore the way that we should structure our lives to be oriented towards God. And that, of course, is one of the most important things that we do. And that's the most important gift that we receive in our faith. So that is something, of course, I would never want to see anyone give up.